Just realized I was on mute. Hey everyone, how are you all doing today? Uh, I'm gonna wait for a couple of more minutes so that everyone else can join in, can tune in, and then we're gonna have a really fun session today. Now, while we are waiting, let's do a quick check in. So, I would like to know from you all where are you all joining in from? I am joining in from Berlin, Germany, but I would like to know from you all where you're joining in from. And if you haven't registered and check in for this particular live stream, the link is now in the chat. Go ahead and join in. But we got Defendant 2511 says that they are doing well. Fantastic. I would also like to know where are you joining in from. So let me know that in the chat. Alright, I'm just gonna also quickly take a look on Discord and see if there are any questions or any messages over there as well. Let's see real quick. Alright, I don't think there is any chat for this particular stream. Alright. Oh, Defendant is joining in from the US. That's fantastic. Thank you for joining in. If I am not wrong, it's like super early over there, right? It's 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Like where, on which coast are you based in US? But I'm assuming it's super early. Alright, I'm just gonna start with sharing my screen and gonna talk a bit about what we are gonna do on this particular live stream, and then we're gonna move forward from that. It's about Defendant says it's about 6 a.m. in the morning. Wow, are you an early bird? 6 a.m. joining a live stream is amazing, and thank you for joining in. All right, coming back to the stream, let me quickly share my screen and talk to you about what we are going to do today. So as you can see on my screen, I have a page that says Remix. Now, I'm curious to know from the chat how many of you know about Remix or have heard about Remix before. Can I get a shout out in the chat for the folks who know about Remix? If you haven't, don't worry. We're gonna cover that in the stream. I'm just curious to know how many folks know about Remix. All right. So if you don't know about Remix, that's all right. Have you heard about the front-end framework React? Or is that something new as well? Let me know if you have heard about React, if you have any experience working with React. If not, that's also completely fine because because Remix is not React. Remix is built kind of on top of React, not exactly. And if you don't know React, it's still fine. We're gonna walk through each and every step of that and learn a bit of React with Remix, and then learn to add authentication to our application today. Right, I'm just gonna quickly, on my other screen, I'm just trying to quickly log into GitHub. All right. All right, so from yesterday's stream, it seems like you folks know a bit about React. That's fantastic, but not you don't have a lot of experience. That's completely fine. So as I mentioned earlier, Remix is a framework that kind of is built on top of React, not exactly built on top of React. It uses React Router, and Remix makes developing web apps really fun. And the mental model that Remix provides is super fun. It's super easy to follow, and I really love this tech stack. and I've been recently experimenting and building like demo applications with Remix, and I was like, let's also teach other people how to use Remix and build applications with that. So for this particular workshop, what we are gonna need is a little bit of experience of JavaScript and Node.js installed on your machine. But again, if it's not installed, you can just go ahead and install it. Once you have installed that, once you have Node on your machine, to create a new Remix project, all you have to do is npx create Remix. It's gonna quickly get you the npm package. Run that npm package. Now it's asking me for the project name, so I'm just gonna say Remix auth global hack week. Then the best part about this CLI is that you can get started with a already pre-configured stack that is created by the Remix team and the community, or you can just get started with the basics. I'm just gonna go with the basics right now. And if you can see, there are a lot of options over here. There's Dino, there's Cloudflare, there's Netlify, Vercel, AWS, Express Server, and then Remix App Server. Now for this one, I'm just gonna go with the Remix App Server. You can use those other options as well. I'm gonna talk a bit about them, but it's gonna work the same way. And the next is TypeScript or JavaScript. I wanna keep it super low key, so I'm gonna go with JavaScript. And yes, please go ahead and install all the packages. Now that the packages are being installed, I'm gonna talk a bit about Remix as well. So the wonderful part about Remix is that it's not just a front-end framework. It helps you with managing your server as well. So with Remix, you can create a full stack application with a backend service and a front end. You can just create your front end, or you can also have, or you can just have your backend services with Remix. That's how wonderful it is. It gives you all the flexibilities that you need. And once the project is ready, we'll look into it. But the options that we saw about Cloudflare, Vercel, Netlify, AWS, Express is basically asking you about what kind of server you want to host. Do you want to use the Dino server and not a Node server? You can go ahead and do that. If you want to deploy it on, let's do this. If you want to deploy it on Vercel, it already gives you those configurations in place so that you don't have to worry about it. And same for the other services as well. Alright, so this is my Remix project over here. I'm gonna wait for a few minutes for the folks who are trying out, who are coding with me live, so that you can also follow along and you have your project set up as well. Now, while you are doing that, I'm just gonna quickly talk about the project structure that we have over here. Also, folks in the chat, keep me posted if you have any questions, or if you want me to go into details of something, or if I'm just going too fast and you want me to take a break, give you an opportunity to observe that, try it out, and then move forward. Alright, it seems like I don't have any questions in the chat. Just gonna zoom in a bit more, and I think this should be fine. Again, let me in the chat if this is not good enough. I can zoom in more so that it's visible to you. So as you can see over here, we have the apps directory, and this is where our app code lives, right? In here we have routes. Now in the routes, we are going to define all our routes, which is like /dashboard, /auth, /login, the index page for our application and stuff like that. So if I open routes, by default, we already have an index page. So as you can see, this is the index page that we have. So if I start the server, 1 p.m. on dev. It's gonna start on localhost 3000. So let's go to the browser. Let's open localhost 3000. We don't want this. This is the default page that we get. Right, so let's go ahead and try to make a change over here. Welcome to Remix, and I'm going to save from Global Hack Week. Save this, come back, and we see the changes happening instantly, right? So let's try to understand what is happening over here. Right, so the first thing over here that we see is meta. So we are basically telling Remix to set up the meta tags that we have in HTML. Now, if you're not sure what meta tags are in HTML, meta tags allow you to set the title of the page, the description of the page, the image of a page as well. So whenever you are sharing a link of that particular web page, you will get an image, the title of the page, and the description as well. So if I open metatags.io, so if I share any website in here, let's just do google.com. If you are sharing google.com with anyone, this is how it might look for them. If you are sharing, I don't know, let's see, pitch.tv, this is what they get. So all this information that you see over here, the description, the title, and the image are a part of meta tags, and you can configure them for your websites. And that's what we are doing over here. We are setting up the title and we are setting up the description as well. So once we deploy this application, share it, this is what they are gonna see. And again, you can set your image over here as well. So that's the meta tag. Now moving forward, we have the index component in which we are defining what we want to show the user, right? So over here we have, again, this is the default one which we get when we bootstrap a project. So I'm not gonna walk through all of this, but as you can see, it has a list of links and then an h1 tag which contains a message, right? Right now, I don't want all this, so I'm just gonna remove this. And I just change the title, adding authentication to your web app. All right, and I'm going to change the title here as well. Now if I come over here, you can see it changes over here, and I'm not sure if the title bar is visible. So I'm gonna open the developer tools, zoom in over here so that it's visible. If I open the head tag, you can see we have the title, adding authentication to your web app. We have configured the title, we haven't configured the description, but we've also changed a bit on the title for the page as well, right? All right, we covered a lot of things, so I'm going to take a quick pause over here and see if folks have any questions while I search for an interesting API that we can try out. All right, so there is no question, I think, in the chat. So we can move forward with the next part, and that is trying to render out some data for our application. So in here, what I am gonna do is, now, before we do that, let me clarify, we are gonna add authentication, but I also want you to teach you how to use Remix. So we are starting with that, and later on we are gonna learn how to add authentication to this particular application, right? So moving forward, now that we have our app up and running, we want to load some data because oftentimes you would be having information, you would be having content, you would be having data coming in from an external service, and you would need to make an API call. For that, Remix has this wonderful concept of loaders. So the way it works is you do export const loader, and this is an async function. Now in here is where we can make API calls. And I see we got oh my god. IM45145V joining in as well. Hey, thank you for joining in. We are working with Remix today. We are gonna learn about Remix as well as how to add authentication to a Remix application. Ashish, yes, thank you. I'm trying to be better at quickly saying out the handlers or the usernames over here. But yeah. All right. Coming back to this, we had a Poke API, so I'm just gonna do const URL to save this in here. Instead of limit 1000, I'm just gonna do limit 10. Now what I want to do is I just want to make a simple fetch call. The way I usually do is have it in an external file. So I would have a new file. I would under utils, I would call it, I don't know, API call.js, something like that. And in here, I would handle all these calls. But for the simplicity of this, I'm just going to put it in here. Now what I want to do is const result equals fetch URL. Now because this is going to be async, I'm going to do this. Alright, it's going to make a simple call, a simple get call to this API, get us some information. And just to view what we get over here, I'm going to do console log result. And then the other interesting thing is I can do return JSON, and this is going to contain the information that I want to basically display to the user. So I can say message hello. Now this return JSON or this information can be used over here, and to do that you have to do something like this. So I'm destructuring this and I'm using the use loader data hook in here. So if I now console log over here and just say message in component and then do message, if I've not making any mistakes, this should work and we should get some stuff on our web page. Just gonna do a quick refresh, come to console. Oops, you see we get a message hello, which was typed in over here, and we should get the result somewhere over here. So as you can see, we get the result over here. That's fantastic, but this is not what we want. So what I'm gonna do is, but for simplicity, I'm just gonna call this response, and then I'm gonna say const result equals await response.json, and I can add more information. So I can do Pokemon and then pass on the result over here. Because I have another key in here, Pokemon, I can destructure this over here. And then instead of console log the message, we can console log the Pokemon now. Okay, things over here, and I see there is a question in the chat. Poke API is used for dealing with databases. Not really. So Poke API is basically an API that already has information of Pokemons, everything around Pokemons. So this is like what they have in here. We are just using this API right now to learn how to make API calls in Remix, right? But if you want to deal with your own API or your own database, you can do that within the loader function as well, right? So instead of then making a call to the API, you would make a call to your database, get that information over here. Now again, a better approach, don't like write all that code in the loader, create a function, use that over here in a utils file, and then call that function in loader. Because oftentimes when you are building applications, you might want to reuse that function again and again. So just uh, start with abstracting things out as and when you move forward with them, right? You don't have to do that all at the same time, but you can always go ahead and abstract things out once you have some information in there. All right. Yep, exactly. So we want to achieve reusability when we actually building applications, like real applications. This is again just for a demo. I'm not gonna use this, or maybe I'm gonna use it. Let's see. But right now I'm not using it, so I'm just gonna keep it like as this. All right, and now we have the results as you can see in here. So if I open it, it contains the name and the URL of that particular Pokemon. That's interesting. All right. What I also want to have is the images of the Pokemon. So I'm gonna try to find if I can get the images as well. Hey you all, apologies for that. Can you all now see my screen and hear me? Just let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat real quick if you all can see me and hear me, and then we'll move forward. But I'm just gonna post a message on Discord as well. All right. If the folks in the chat can let me know if they can see the screen and hear me, that would be wonderful. And would all right. People can see me. People can hear me. I am back. Apologies again. It's it's my internet that does not want to work well today. We are back, so let's hope things work out now. All right. So I'm gonna do a quick recap of what we did because before this technical break, we saw how to set up a remix project. We talked a bit about remix, and we also looked into how we can make API calls in remix. So if over here we are making an API call to the Poke API to get information of Pokemons, and we are right now just using the use loader data hook to get that information in a component. And then the next step we want to do is also render this information. But before that, let's come over here. We want to also check if we can get the image of the API because, sorry, image of the Pokemon, because it's no fun without the image, right? So let's try to see if we can get that. All right, so we have the name. If I go to utility, what do they have? Oh, okay. Utility has this resource list. Hmm. But I don't think they have images. So what I am gonna do is I'm just gonna move forward and start rendering out the Pokemon, and then also try to let's see, also add a link to that. Just try to do that. So we already have that information in the results array in here. You can see we got the name and the URL for that particular Pokemon. So let's come over here. One thing we can do is we can do result dot results. Let's see if that gives us any error. Hopefully it should not. Now we only have this information that we need. Let's render it out. But because we don't want the message, I am going to remove the message in here. And I'm just going to have a div. In that div, because it's a list. And now let's do this. We got Pokemon. Now we are simply using the JavaScript map function dot map, and we are gonna pass. Okay, just gonna call this Pokemons because I wanna call this as Pokemon. And now what we want to do is we want to return an li element, and in that li element it should have an anchor tag with an href, which would be this. Over here, this is gonna be Pokemon.name, and here this would be Pokemon.url. Because this is a list, uh, every item that you render from a list should have a unique key. So I'm going to do that. Pokemon dot name, assuming each name is unique. Come back over here. Now, as you can see, we got names. If I click on that, it takes me to that particular page. Looks interesting. Okay, looks interesting. If I search for image, no, no. Alright, so we can get images, it seems, which is in sprites. Alright, but I don't really know where sprite lives. So basically, what we will have to do is we'll have to get that ID, make another call, get the image, and then run it out. I feel it's too much for this particular live stream again because this live stream is focused more on adding authentication to a web app. But I just wanted to show you how Remix you can do fetching in Remix. Now, other interesting things you can do in Remix is, let's just say I want to have a new route and I want to call it hello.ghx. Now, this route can just be an API route. What does that mean? So if I just say export const loader, and this can be again an async function, and this time I'm just gonna return a message and hello from GHW. Save this. If you observe over here, I'm not returning any component like I was doing it over here. So I don't have any component over here. I'm just returning a JSON object. So if I come back to my browser, and now if I go to hello endpoint, you see now it becomes kind of an API endpoint. Interesting, right? So when you make a GET request, you can use this to make or work it as an API endpoint as well. Now the loader function basically works when you have how do you call it? When you make GET request to those particular routes, if you're making post request, you want to have a different kind of function that is called an action function. And we're going to look into it when we start. Or let's try to implement that. So in here itself, let's minimize this particular div, and over here, let's just say we have a form, right? And that form should do something. It should have an action, and then it should have a method. In this case, it should be a post. I'm gonna say button. Uh, hmm. I'm gonna, I want to make it interesting, so let's do this. Input. I'm gonna say type equals text. Name is gonna be, let's say, a first name. That's over here. We're gonna do submit. Value is gonna be submit, and over here I'm gonna create a new route, which is gonna be first. Um, let's see. First, I don't want to call it hello. Let's just call it world. I'm gonna save this. Come back. We now have a form. I can fill it out, submit it. Right now it says not found because what is happening behind the scenes is it makes a call to the slash world route, and now we don't have any world routes configured. It's not going to do anything. So let's come back over here and create a new world route. And I see there is a question in the chat. Which extension allows the auto import? That's a good question. Let's check it out. I'm not 100% sure. I have configured my browser a while back. How do I see existing extensions? Okay. Uh, yeah, I think Intel I, if you have Intel I code, it does a lot of work for you. And I think that's the extension that handles that. There are a lot of extensions that I don't really use a lot in my projects. I would say yeah, Intel I code would be the one that does that. And also because I am using VS Code, VS Code handles a lot of it by itself. All right, coming back to this, I want to have a new route, and I'm going to call it world.jsx. And in here, I'm going to have ex- an action, so export const action. And this is again going to be an async function. And this time I'm going to catch the request. Um, I'm also trying to remember. Right now, I'm just going to do console.log request to see what request I have. And I need to return something if I'm not wrong. But let's just. Also, I'm going to have a loader because once the action is complete, you can have the loader do something for you. Right now, I'm just going to return a JSON object. Again, I'm just going to have a message and I'm going to call this a form submission. Now, if I submit the form, you defined an action but didn't return anything. All right. So I need to return something in the action. We return hello. I submit something. Element type is invalid. Expected a string. All right. So it says that I also need to export a component. So let's do that. Export default. Just gonna call it hello. Return div, and in that div, I want an h1 that says hello. If you want see, here you went. All right. All right. And if we come back in here, things look good. We get some information in here. We have the headers. We have the URL information. All right, but this does not really solve what I was trying to do. So I'm going to go to the docs. Uh, let's just see form over here. Nope. I'm trying to see how we do. Yeah, request.form data. All right, so this is what we need over here. So I'm gonna do body request.form data, and now if we log the body in here, let it compile, let it come back, say hello, submit this. All right, changes async. We need to do this. Come back. I'm going to submit the form again. So we have a form data which is incomplete. That's interesting. All right. I don't want to get too much into this, so I'm just going to try to quickly wrap this up. But let's see. We have the form, get the form data. Mm, but where are we? Okay. Body.get. And then he's doing title. But we don't want the title. The const. What were we calling the form? First name. First name equals await body dot get first name, but this is still not going to work because we the form data was empty. All right, so we now get the hello over here. So as you can see, I handed my form submission in the action over here, and I can pass on that information in here or in here as well. So as you can see, there is the use loader data. Again, this is using the information that is coming in from the loader data. There is another similar one. Let's see if I can find that. Yes, the use action data in here. So once I have the action complete, I can return that information and I can do use action data instead of use loader data. So let's try to do that. So I'm going to do first name and I'm going to return JSON again. And let's just call it name and return the first name. We're going to destructure the name. We're going to do use action data. And now we're going to do name. All right. So now if we come back over here, cannot destructure name. That's all right. Do this, submit it. Now we have hello Herschel. Come back over here. Uh, let's see what name do we want. I'm gonna try quickly type in a username from Pitch, and now we have that over here as well. So as you can see, this is how you can handle any other request that is not a GET request. Now we don't really need this, so I can remove this from here. It's still gonna work. But this is how you can have you can manage other requests apart from GET request in Remix. We saw an example with the form in here. Now, assuming we have everything that we need for our application, we want to move forward and we want to add authentication because we want to make sure that our app is secure and no one else apart from the people for whom this app is intend to be get access to the app. We're gonna use two packages for this. So one is Remix Auth, which is basically a helping packages to manage authentication in Remix. And for the authentication part, we are going to use Auth0. And for that, I'm using the Remix Auth0 package. I'm going to install it. It's going to install. While that is happening, I'm going to come over here and go to auth0.com. If you don't have an account on Auth0, go ahead and make an account. You can simply sign up over here and it gives you a generous free tier. So go ahead, do that. I already have an account, so I'm going to continue with my GitHub account. And here I have my Auth0 account logged in. I'm going to zoom in for you. I have, let me zoom in a bit more. This should be good enough, but if you want me to zoom in more, let me know. Now, because I already have used all Jira, I already have things set up in here. Your screen might be different if you are signing up for the first time. But once you have, so basically what you would want to do is you want to create a tenant, and this is how your screen might look like. Based on where you are based out of, you can set up the region, you can give this a name, you can click on create. Once that tenant is created, you can create applications within that tenant. So if you go to applications and click on applications, there is going to be by default a default application that you're going to get. As you can see, it says default app. You can use that or you can create a new application. I'm going to quickly show you how that works. You can give your app name. You can do a regular web app. You can do a single page app. Both kind of works in this case. And then you can click on create, and Auth0 will create an application for you. And that application will give you the domain name, the client ID, and the client secret. This is what we are going to use to connect with Auth0. And then in this application, I've already configured a callback URL and a logout URL, and that's it. That's all we need to do on the Auth0 side. The rest of the things we are going to implement on the code side. So again, folks, if you have any questions, do let me know in the chat. I am happy to answer that. If you want me to take a quick pause so that you can follow along, you are there with me, you have an account, and you want to follow along, just let me know. I can take a quick pause and then we can move forward together. Will you post your code somewhere and share the link with us? Sure, I can. I can create a GitHub repo and share the link with you all. Let me, just do that right now. One thing I want to do is have a gitignore file. It has a gitignore file. That's fantastic. Let me come over here. Oops. Owner is me. Repository name is gonna be remix of 0 GHW. All right, and I'm gonna create a repository so that we have a link already. So here is, I've posted the link in the chat. You can get that link. I'm gonna quickly also try to push what we have for now. Get in it. All right. It's gonna say first commit. Require the remote. And now that is done, git push origin master. All right, now the code should be on here. All right, so we got the code in here as well, so you folks can now get this code. And I'm also gonna try to keep pushing the code as in when we work on this. All right. Now that we have this information, I want to use this information. Now, one thing you need to make sure is that this information is not shared with anyone. I'm going to create an environment variable file and store the values in here. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to create an .env.example so that when you are referring to the code, you know what what information you need. Auth 0 client ID. Right. Now for this, I'm just gonna quickly let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna have a overlay over here so that I can configure my keys and I don't expose it in front of the stream. All right, I have configured all the information that I needed to configure. It's in my .env file, but the structure looks something like this. Now again, all this information I'm getting in from Auth0 itself. Now this part is done. I don't need to worry about it. I can move on to the next part of actually implementing the code. All right, so I'm gonna first try to explain you how this is gonna be handled. So the first thing is the first thing that's gonna happen is whenever the user logs in, we're gonna store a cookie so that we know the user has logged in, and every time the user comes back, if the cookie is present, we know that the user has logged in. If the cookie is not present, we know that the user hasn't logged in and they need to log in. So for that we need to create a new file. So inside of app itself, I'm gonna create a new file under service uh, and then call it session.server.js. This is where again Remix really helps you because it gives you uh, all the required required. It basically abstracts all this for you, so you can just quickly go ahead and set things up. So over here we are now setting up the session storage. We are using the create cookie session storage function, and then cookie we are gonna pass a couple of things. The name. So what name do we want it to have? This can be any name. You can call it 0 session, or you can just say session, or you can say user session, whatever name you want to give. Then we want to have the same site policy over here, which means that this can be only used by one particular site. I mean, the same domain, no other things can be used. For this, we are going to use Lex. In path, I am going to set this, which basically tells that this should be accessed on all the routes that we have for this particular application. HTTP only. I'm going to set it to true. Like it should be only available if this information or this route is being called via HTTP. And now the secret. Now this is basically a unique key that you want to create, and this secret is going to be used to encrypt the cookie information, right? Now over here again, because this is a demo, I'm going to simply like do a random words, but make sure you create this in a more secure way. And then the last thing I want to do is tell this to enable it only when it is in production. So that information we can get from process.env dot node environment. Oops. Yes. And then if it's production, set this up. And we are going to also export a couple of functions from here. That is get session. So get session basically allows you to get the session information. Commit session allows you to create this information, and destroy session allows you to delete that information. Session storage. And now we have configured our cookies. For this example, we have this particular cookie which is gonna store the authentication information. But again, based on your application, you can have multiple cookies in there for different functions or for different applications. All right, so this is how you set up cookies. Again, you can find all a detailed explanation of this on the Remix documentation. Now that we have this, let's go ahead and try to implement authentication. So in the utils function, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it auth.server.js. Then in this file, we are going to start importing authenticator from Remix auth, as well as zero strategy, and then the session storage that we created right now. The first thing we want to do is we want to create a new instance of the authenticator. Authenticator. I'm going to do new authenticator. And in that, we want to pass on the session storage. This tells the authenticator that, hey, create a new authenticator and use the session storage that we created to manage basically all the session storage. And then let's do const zero strategy. Is going to be the new an instance of the zero strategy. Oops. We're just going to take a bunch of information. So the first thing we need to pass on is the callback URL. This is the URL that it will call when the user has logged in or logged out to just check. We're going to configure, we're going to create this route as well. Right now it is localhost 3000. I'm going to have a route /auth/callback. The next is the client ID, and again, this is to connect it to our Auth0 account. CRET. Now have the client secret. We also need the domain. So let's do domain. All right. And we're gonna have an async function. This function will y and z. All right. This function can take on the access token. It can have the refresh token, any extra params, and lastly the profile. And now we can return whatever we want. Now, in theory, what you would want to do is once the user logs in, you want to query the profile. You want to get the user's email ID. Once you have that email ID, make a call to your database and get more information from the user, right? So if you, let's just say, have a subscription service and you're storing the information of the plan that the user has subscribed to, right? Now, Auth0 does not has that information, but your database has that information. So now that now that the user has logged in, you can get that information from your database by simply passing on that email ID. Or if you are using the Auth0 ID, you can pass on that ID as well. For this, I don't have a database. I don't have a database setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply return profile. But in that scenario, you would want to query that information from your uh, profile or from your database, sorry, and then return it. All right. So now we have the Auth0 strategy. We have the authenticator. We now want to use this authenticator. So now in my routes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of files. So the first file would be auth.login.jsx. Now, important things to note over here is that auth.login will create a route as in /auth/login. So if I have, let's just say, my login form over here, so I'm going to do export default function login, and I want to return a form. And this form will have let's just say simple login button. Because again, Auth0 is gonna handle all the login, so I don't need to worry about this. And what should happen is the action should then be /auth. Now I don't have an auth route, but that's fine. I'm gonna have a method as well, and this is gonna be post. All right, let's run the server to see what is happening. npm run dev. If things go well, we should not get an error. And all right, it has compiled. Let's come back to our application. Right now, it's just localhost 3000. I can go to hello. I can see the data over here. If I go to auth/login, we get the login button, right? So anything you set up in a way like auth.login, it creates a route. But over here, we have a route that is just auth, right? So how do we create that? For that, we follow the same principle. We do auth and dot, and because it's now an index route, we do underscore index.jsx. All right, I am gonna take a quick pause over here to see if folks have any sort of question. No question. All right. Now, one thing I want to do real quick is whenever someone comes to my index page, I want to give them an option to go to the login page, right? So over here, what I can do is I can gonna use the link component again. This is coming in from Remix itself. So I'm gonna do link. I think it's two, and I can then pass on /auth/login. Go to login page, save this. I come back over here, go to my index route. I have go to the login page. I can click on it. It takes me to the login page. All right. So let's go and go forward with this and try to implement the login as well. We have an auth.index page, and in here we will import. We want to import it from utils and then auth.server. This is going to be authenticator. Try to give me an error. Let's see. Now you're going to export const loader, and we're going to redirect the user. Did not. This should have been auto imported. Browser, why do that? Never mind. Let's code this, and then we're going to do that. Import redirect. Okay. So what is happening over here is the redirect function will basically redirect the user if they come to the auth route, but or if they make a get request to that particular route. But if it's a post request, what we want to do is we want to authenticate the user. So in here, we're going to pass on the information that is coming in. We're going to do request. We'll be returning a return authenticator dot authenticate. This is going to give me an error, pretty sure. Let's see. Authenticate. We're going to tell it what service we are using. Over here it's auth0, and we will be passing on the request. Now, if you remember, again, this is a post request. So if we come to the login page, if we make a post request, it is going to run this particular piece of code. But if we directly try to go to slash auth and pass on nothing else, it is a get request. So it's going to redirect the user to the login page. I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have any question, let me know in the chat, and I'll help you understand it. I can uh, do a quick recap as well and help you better understand this. All right, so this is how it should be implemented. Now we need to have a logout route as well as the callback, because we configured the callback in auth server, so we need to have a callback route as well. So let's go ahead and create a new file, auth.callback.jsx. Now in this, we will again import authenticator, and this is going to be a resource route. So a resource route is basically a route that does not render out any component. We will be passing a request and do return authenticator dot authenticate auth0. That's the strategy. Gonna pass in the request that we get in from the call. And now we are gonna use two interesting functions. So we're gonna say not functions but two parameters. So it's a success. Let's just say we have a dashboard for our application. So the user should be navigated to the dashboard. But if it's a failure, we want the user to go back to the auth/login page. So once the user logs in, based on the status of success or failure, they are going to be redirected. So let's go ahead and create a dashboard. And this can simply be a component for now. Export function, dashboard. Let's put dev in here. we're gonna have an h1 tag, hello, and then we're gonna h2 successfully logged in. I'm gonna save this. We got the call back. We now have a dashboard. So if I let's take a look at this as well. So if I go to dashboard now, it says successfully logged in. The user hasn't logged in. We haven't gone to the login logic right now. I'm gonna come back to that. Let's just first quickly implement the logout, and then we'll see how it looks. So in here, I'm again gonna have a auth dot logout.jsx. I'm gonna again import authenticator and export const action. Again, for me, this is more of how do you call it? A resource route. So I won't be passing on any component. What I want to do is return authenticated dot. If you see over here, we already have a function that says logout. So I can do that. Again, it needs the information for the user. So we pass on the request. And once the user has logged out, what we want to do, we want to redirect them to maybe, let's just say, the index route. And I'm going to save this. We have the logout logic, we have the login logic, and we have a dashboard. But right now, the problem is the user can go to the dashboard by itself. Let's hold on to that. Let's go and try to do login authenticator.authenticate is not a function. All right. Uh, close this. Where is my login? Not this. Where is my auth? Here is my auth. I'm gonna copy authentic. Oh, so this was the problem. Input was correct, but the way I set it up wasn't correct. But I'm gonna now do sign up because I don't have an account created in here. I'm gonna click on sign up and I'm gonna do test@test.com, and for the password, I'm gonna have a super simple password. I'm gonna click on continue. I think I know what the problem is. I already have a test.test user. So I'm gonna create a new user. This is the password. We have a new user. Click on continue. Yes, do accept that. And now my user has come to the dashboard. So we logged in the user, worked well. The user got logged in. Now I have the user logged out as coming to the dashboard once they have successfully logged in. Works perfectly well. But what if I want to log out? I don't have a log out button right now. So let's go ahead and code that. So in the dashboard, again, it's going to be a form, and it will be a button that says log out, and it is an action which is going to go out to the logout page, and the method is going to be post. Save this, come back over here. If I click on logout, it should log out the user and take us to the home page. So we basically implemented the login and logout logic, and it seems to be working. But there are a couple of caveats to this. But again, I'm gonna take a quick pause, see if there are any questions from the folks, and also let me know what are the caveats that you think we have right now. If you have been coding with me, and if you have completed uh, For what I've shown till now, try out going to all these routes via just the URL and see what happens, and try to form that logic in your head. That's a wonderful question. Are the routes protected now? That's a wonderful question. So the user is logged out, or are any routes protected? That's a again that's a wonderful question. So what we really want to do is, if the user is logged in, they should not be able to access the dashboard. We logged out the user earlier, so if I go to dashboard, the user should not be able to get there and maybe throw an error or take them to the login screen. But that's not the case over here. We went to the dashboard even after clicking on logout. Again, let's see this. So if I go to dashboard, I can still see the dashboard. That does not make sense, because the user should only get access to the dashboard when they are logged in. So we haven't protected the routes yet. So that's one thing. There's another thing as well. I'm gonna give you folks some time to think about it, try it out, and then we'll talk about it. So I want to try to show you. It's gonna be. It was here, but it does not have anything right now. All right. So let's go ahead and try to log in again. I'm gonna click on login. Does not have an action. That's interesting. But you are trying to submit to it. We did have an action in here, did we not? We did. All right. Sometimes uh, uh, it's nothing to do with the implementation part of it. In my journey with Remix and authentication, well, in Remix in general, sometimes you might have to restart the server if you get errors which you should not get. So I'm just gonna restart my server, and hopefully it should fix the things. Let's see. And we have things up and running. All right. Gonna do a quick refresh again. Click on login. We now have a user logged in. Now that the user is logged in, we see the dashboard. And also, if you observe over here, we have an auth session which contains basically the uh, session that we created and want to store for the user. So if I do log out, that session is deleted, and now that session is not there. We know the user has logged out, right? So that's one way to check if the user is logged in or logged out, to query the session storages that you have. Or there's another way to do that. Now, because we are using this wonderful package which provides us some functionality out of the box, we can basically use it to handle things. So I'm going to close. We don't want to use this. I'm going to close this. We don't want API call. We don't want hello.js. What we want is the dashboard. It's over here. Now, again, for the dashboard, we are making a get request. So we want to have a loader in here. This can be async. Pass on the request. I'm not sure if we want that. Let's check. All right. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to use authenticator and say return if authenticator dot is authenticated. Again, we're going to pass on the request, and we had this wonderful parameter got failure redirect. So if now the user is not authenticated, they try to access the dashboard, they're gonna be redirected to the login page. So let's now try to go and access the dashboard. Wait, what happened? We clicked on dash, we went to the dashboard URL, but now we are at the login page. Let's uh, open the network tab to see what request we are making. So again, we are at the local host. I'm gonna go to dashboard. You see, we went to dashboard. It did a redirect, and it took us to the login page because the user wasn't logged in, and they don't have an access to that. So now that we are on the login page, we know we want to log in the user. We click on login. The user is logged in, and now we get the dashboard. So if I go now to the index page, right, things look good. If I go now to the dashboard, we should be able to access the dashboard because the user is already logged in. So now we have protected routes, works well, right? There's one other thing that we kind of need to take care of. I think it still also falls under protected route in a way. Okay, we do not need word. All right. So we need to implement kind of the same logic to a login page because the user is logged in. We know that. But if I come to auth/login, we still see the login page, which does not make sense. The user is already logged in, so we don't want that. So again, what we are going to do is we're going to have export const loader, and this can be an async function. We will pass the request and say return await authenticator dot. Again, you're gonna check if the user is authenticated. We're gonna pass in the request, and this time what we want to do is if the user is already authenticated, which means it's a success. So take the user to the dashboard. EASH. Right. Now if I save this, come back to our page. Now if we do auth/login, oh, they already logged in. You see, we went to login because they were already logged in. They were redirected to the dashboard. Does that make sense to you all? I'll do a recap of everything we did. In the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know in the chat. And now I need to push this code as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to quickly come over here, check if there are anything that should not be committed. Looks good. So I'm going to clear this. All right. The code is now again on the GitHub repo for the folks who just joined in. Okay. This wasn't the shortcut that works in here. But for the folks who just joined in, wrong screen. You can find the code on the GitHub repo that I've shared in the chat or on the link that you just see right now on your screen. All right, so let's do a quick recap the of just the authentication part. I'm not gonna go do a recap from the scratch. So the first thing we did was we installed two packages. The first is called Remix Auth, and the next is called Remix Auth 0. Remix Auth basically handles on all the important parts of destroying the session, creating the session, and all those things. Remix Auth 0 helps you connect with Auth 0 and manage things well with Auth 0 and Remix Auth. Now that we had that package installed and we are gonna store the session in cookies, we created a cookie session storage file and exported a couple of functions. Again, we don't really need those functions, but maybe somewhere in the code you want to manually do get session or do want to commit something to that session or destroy the session. It's always good to export them, or not, or if you really think you don't want to use that, just remove that export as well. But now that we have this in here, we start implementing it. So the first thing we did is, because we need a login page, we created a login page. And in this login page, we have a simple form that has a login button. And once the user clicks on this form, it takes them to the /auth route with making a post request to that route. So let's go to that particular route, and this is the /auth route. Now what happens is, if a user simply goes to uh, your website your website/auth, because that is now a get request, they're going to be taken to the login page. But if they click on the login button from here, it is a post request and the action gets executed, and this particular function is executed. Now, because we are using auth 0 for managing the authentication, the user is taken to the login page where they can log in or they can sign up. And once they sign up or log in, a callback function is called. And that callback is handled in the callback route. Now, this route is a get route, and that's why we have the loader in here. And we pass in if once the authentication is done, and if it is success, take the user to our dashboard page. If it is a failure, take the user back to the login page. And this is what our dashboard looks like. So we have like a simple hello message. We have successfully logged in. And then we have another form which allows the user to log out. And this goes to the logout route, which basically just logs out the user, and that's it. So we use the .logout function. And once that is complete, the user is redirected to the main page, right? Now we added two other things in here. We added a loader function in here, which basically checks if the user is authenticated or not. And if they are authenticated, good enough. We want to proceed forward. But if they are not, we want to send the user to the login page, because this is a protected route. We only want the users who are logged in to access this particular page. Now we did something similar with the login page. Now the problem was with the login pages, even if the user was logged in, if they go to the login route, they were able to see the login page, which is not ideal. So what we did is, over here is we checked if the user is authenticated. If it's successful authentication, don't show the user login page. Take them to the dashboard. All right. So we did a lot of things in here. Uh, so now I'm going to take a quick pause to see if folks have any questions. I did a quick recap as well. And I'm going to go through this documentation because it has an example. And I want to show you one particular thing. Let's see if they have it here. Okay. Okay. So I want to implement one thing of on the dashboard route, which I haven't done before. So I'm gonna try it out. Let's start the server first. Let's come back to our application. Let's just do user logged in. Works fine. But now I want to have that user information on my dashboard. Right. Let's see how I can do that. Now by default, Auth0 manages has its own database where it kind of creates information of the user. So if I go back to Auth0, was it user management, users? As you can see, I have like two users over here. I can click on this user and it gives me the details. So the name, the email, it says pending because I haven't done the verification for this email. And again, it's a test email. And then all the other information, right? So what I want to do is I want to maybe display the name as well as this avatar of the user. So let's try to do this. You're going to try to change a few things in here. Let's just do const user equals await authenticator dot is authenticated. We're going to pass in the request. Looks good. What I'm going to do is if there is no user, we want to redirect to slash login. But if there is a user, what I want to do is instead of returning this, let's try to do return JSON mm, user. And then we're going to try to extract that out over here. So I'm going to call user use loader data. And for now, let's just console log that. All right. Dashboard, nothing broke in here. And we got the user information in here. So we got the display name, we have the email, we have a photos array which contains the avatar and a bunch of other information. That's perfect. That's what we need. So now what I'm going to do is hello. I'm going to pass on the name. So where it is, it's user.display name. I'm going to remove this message. Does not make sense. And I want to have the image, which is going to have the source. And this source is going to be user dot photos. Wait, user, yeah, photos dot value. If I save this, we run into an error. Do a refresh again, we run into an error again. All right. Hmm. So we have the display name. Oops. All right. So it should be display name. Now we have the user display name. It's perfect. And now we want to work with the photos. Let's check that again. So user dot photos and should be dot value. Outside of a suspense boundary, the entire route will switch to client rendering. Hmm. Right, I'm gonna go to the documentation because I need to check if they have an image component. Mm, nope. Image element must have an. Yes, I'm going to do that. I just want to make sure that this thing is working. It is working. I was using the wrong tag all along. And I'm just going to have an alt text. Mm, avatar image of. And we're going to say user dot display name. What else do we need? You don't need to use the words image, photo, or picture. Okay. Right. Following the best practices over here, and we now have this information. So we don't need to console log this in here. We can remove it, save this. We have the information. Now if we log out, works well. Let's check in if we can access the dashboard. Oh, wait, what? But it is if there is no user, it should redirect. It did not do that. So we broke something in here. That's fantastic. So let's come back over here, check the documentation. There's no this written JSON. All right, I don't want to do that. Hmm. Let's do this. Load log user and also check if it does true or false or not. Oh, it says it's true. That's interesting. So what I can do is I can do if user equal null. I have one. Hmm. No, this is false. All right. Uh, wait. Gonna do this for now. Save this. And now if I go to the index route, that what is literally what devs do. Literally every 15 minutes. I know what issue there is, but I just want to make sure I'm not over engineering it because I often tend to do that. So now if we logged in, we have the user, works really well. And now if I log out, now right, the user is logged down. And if I come to the dashboard, it's gonna give me an error. I was expecting that. And that's false. That's a true. All right, yeah. Okay. So my logic was correct over here. So I just need to do this. Yeah, I'm not using TypeScript. Stop giving me TypeScript errors, mate. Refresh. What? So that's the what that I want to shout out loud. Because my user is logged out right now. Uh, then it should be directed to this particular URL, but it is not doing that. Hmm. Like, I'm gonna try one other thing, and I'm not sure how that would go. Failure redirect again. Go to slash auth slash login. Save this. Refresh. Okay. So do login. I get the dashboard. Will log out. Logs out the user. And now, all right, fantastic. So Authenticator allows me to do this as well, which is fantastic. I don't have to worry about things then. Love this. Love the package. Thank you for the creator. Thanks to the creator for creating this particular package. All right, we got roughly 14 minutes. I don't want to implement new things now. Just I want to check in with you folks, see if you have any questions. If you have any questions around Auth Zero, Remix, or anything else. I also did a live stream a while back on how to implement authentication for your Next.js applications. Now that was pre the app directory that Next.js implemented recently. So if you're using Pages, if you want to, and if you're not using server components, you can check out that live stream as well. And if you're using Next.js, obviously, check out that live stream as well, and you can learn how you can implement authentication for your Next.js application. All right, I'm gonna quickly commit this. Need to configure that plugin. Still haven't. All right. Under user information. All right, so the code is up now. You can have it. You can access that. You can use that. You can build on top of it, and you can start implementing authentication to your app. All right, I don't see any questions coming in the chat, and I don't want to move forward and start implementing new things. So, what do you folks want me to talk now, or want me to cover? I can talk a bit more about Algeria if you want. Oh, I can probably show you this cool thing, but yeah, I'm just trying to. All right, let's go to Algeria. So Algeria has this amazing thing called Algeria Actions, and this action allows you to basically run a lot of things based on what the user has done. So let's just say if a user logged in, you want to run a logic, you want to maybe send a user a message, or like, yeah, just send a user a message. You can just select the login flow. I don't want to start the two, and you can then add an action in here. You can build your custom action. You can browse actions, and if you can see, like, there are a lot of things in here. Trying to find something that is cool. So there is InfoBip. If you want to send out an SMS, you can use InfoBip. There is Pilvo. If you want to send out a message again, you can use the Pilvo service. If you want to do 1H, if you want to use 1H, you can use 1H to send out an SMS. So for the login, you can do all those things. You can create your custom. So you can create an action. You can give it a name. You can select the node runtime. And when you create it, you can basically write your JavaScript code in that to handle or do whatever you want to do. That is similar to post user registration. So you have a new user who registered for your application. You can set up a post user registration flow, and in this flow, you can then start. Let's see. I'm going to again do browse action. There was a service. Just trying to find a service which would allow to send an email. Uh, okay, I don't see that in here. But you can basically also send an email. Okay, so you can use this particular service to send out an email. I think OneEdge also has an email service. No, okay. So you can send them an email. You can that can be a welcome email like, "Hey, welcome to my shop or my application, whatever it is," and then have those flows set in. Every time a user changes a password, now Auth0 is automatically gonna uh, send them a message like password is updated or something. But if you want to take it a step further and want to go a bit more in advance and go in depth, you might be able to do that via flows. So I would highly recommend checking out Auth0 actions if you want to have those custom flows. And again, these are like drag and drop. I'm trying to see if, yeah, okay. Yeah, basically like drag and drop. Most of them are drag and drop. You can configure them the way you want and manage them. All right, so let's see. I got roughly 8 more minutes. All right, I'm just gonna do a quick recap of the whole live stream, uh, and for the folks who joined in late, to give them an idea of what we covered in the live stream, so that if they want to go back and check it out, they can do that as well. So in this live stream, we looked into Remix, which is a framework built on not really built on top of React, but it uses React under the hood and does a lot and makes web development fun again. Uh, to get started, you can simply run the command npx create remix and then just go to the CLI steps and get a bootstrapped project up and running. We talked a bit about the routes in Remix and how Remix handles different things. So in here we have index route. This is the main page that the user would see. And index route, we learned about loaders and what loader is. So basically, loader is a function which would be called once your web page is loaded. No, when your web page is kind of getting loaded. So this is the perfect place where you can get all the data that you want to display to your user. For example, for our application, we wanted to display a list of Pokemons. So we made an API call, got those Pokemons, and then rendered it to our web page. This is over here. All right. Do we have the server running? No. Start the server and let's get back to our index page. As you can see, we have it in here. And then we looked into the other part of it, that is actions, and learned how we can handle forms in Remix. So we have a small form over here in which we can pass on a message. I'm just going to say Herschel. I'm going to submit this, and I get the message hello Herschel, and that is again on a different route. I can do that on the same route as well, but not going to get into that. You basically can configure an action in here which does that. So we take a look at the world route. This is what it looks like. We have an action. It captures the incoming information coming in from the request, returns it to our component, and we use it in our component over here. But Remix is not just a front-end framework. You can do a lot with Remix. You can have like API routes within Remix itself. So we have a route that is hello. It simply returns some JSON information. I can also say a message, or let's just say I'm just gonna say city and I'm gonna write Berlin. Save this. Now, if this is gonna give me an error, that's fine. I haven't implemented error checking or error boundaries in here. That's all right. But if I now go to the hello route, we get the message as well as the city. So this in itself can be an API route for my application. Once we understood kind of the basics of Remix, we started implementing authentication with Auth0. So we created an application in Auth0. For this, I just used my default app. And in this default app, I configured my callback URL and my logout URL. And then I created a .env file, which is over here. And this env file contains this information. All you have to do is replace now your Auth0 client ID, your client secret, on your and your Auth0 domain, which again you can find it from your Auth0 dashboard. Now that you have that, let's move forward. We implemented the session service, which basically creates a cookie storage, and we use this in our authentication. So if I come to utils in auth.server.js, we create new instances for the authenticator, and this authenticator is using that session storage that we implemented earlier. And because we are using Auth0, we want to have an Auth0 strategy, which basically allows us to connect Auth0 to our application. So we have a callback URL. Again, I have hard coded this. You usually don't hard code this. And then I have my client ID, client secret, the domain. And for this, I'm just returning the profile or the user profile that I get from Auth0. But in real world scenario, you would want to query your database and get your user information and then return it to your application. Once I had that, we went ahead, we created a login route, which basically contains a form so that the user can go in that route, click on login, and they are taken to the auth route. And this auth route handles that logic. So if let's just say someone comes to the auth route, if they just do slash auth, it gives them an error that you made a get request to auth but did not provide a loader. It did provide a loader. It should have done redirect. Something is missing in here. That's all right. Uh, I think I know what is missing in here. It should have been no, but I am doing that. That's interesting. I'm not 100% sure what error we ran into, but I'm gonna skip that for now because we are running out of time and I have just 2 more minutes to cover things. But ideally, if the user just goes to slash auth, they should be redirected to the login page. If not, and if it's a post request, we use the authenticator uh, instance, we use the authenticate function, we pass on the strategy that is auth0 and the request, and this handles the whole login thing for us. So it takes us to auth0 where the user can log in, pass in the username and ID. Once they are logged in, the callback route is called. And in the callback route, we check if it's a success or if it's a failure. If it's a success, we take the user to the dashboard. If it's a failure, we take the user back to the login page. So on the dashboard, we have over here a check which says if the user is successfully logged in or not. If not, we take them again to the login page. But if they are, we get that user information and then we display it on the dashboard. And lastly, we also have a logout route, which would basically log out the user, clear out the session, and then take them to the homepage. So that's it for this particular live stream. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. I hope you learned something new today. And if you have any questions after the live stream, feel free to let me know. The repo is already shared with you all. You can find that on GitHub. That should be on your screen right now. You can find that link on the chat. And if you want to connect with me after the live stream, Here is my Twitter handler. You can find me on Twitter with this handler, or if you want, you can just do herschel.dev and then just reach out to me. Thank you all for joining in, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are. Take care.